Hey Live Leak, how's it going? Live Leakers everywhere. Good to see you. Event Horizon 2012 here, and just wanted to do a real brief your say and tell a quick story. You know, a lot of things on Live Leak, especially with the OWS movements going on, highlighting police brutality, really inappropriate actions by the police, sometimes thuggish behavior. And I've been accused, when I comment on those things, when I see them, I've been accused of, hating law enforcement and being, wait till you need a cop and all that kind of thing. And so I just wanted to relay, you know, kind of a quick little story. I have a great relationship with the law enforcement officers in our town here. As I've said before, we live in a real small community, just about 2,000 people, and we don't have a local police department. We have county sheriffs, and the deputies live here in the community, and I have the highest respect for them. Our deputy sergeant, who's in charge of the local, precinct, whatever you want to call it, here, is a good friend of mine. And I even, if you saw my video where I showed the old abandoned school building that I own, it's like a 25,000 square foot school building. A couple of times a year, I open that up to our local sheriff's department and let them do their like urban entry, tactical entry scenarios in there, and they use this. It's really actually kind of cool. They use live fire rounds. It's this stuff called simunition. That's like a marking round, low velocity, and so I've got little fluorescent grease smears all over the inside of my school building after they go in there and play shoot 'em up. But it's fun to watch, but again, we live in a small town, and I think that's why we have such a great relationship with our law enforcement. And I want to relay a little personal story that just kind of, this is what put this in my mind. But not everybody thinks that way. Of course, there's always people that are going to, they don't like the cops. I'm really not one of them. I really dislike dishonest or disrespectful or brutal police, and that's simply because I have such high respect and high regard for law enforcement to begin with. So I'm really pretty vocal about my displeasure with corrupt law enforcement. And so a couple of days ago, I'm taking my kids to school, and I drop my daughter off at the elementary school, and I've got my son in the truck with me, and I'm heading down First Street. And I pass a deputy, and we have a new deputy in town. I've seen him a couple of times just driving around with one of the more senior officers, kind of showing him the ropes. But as soon as I passed him, I noticed he, looked at me and looked at my vehicle and quickly turned around and started following me. And, got up behind me. I turned the corner, and he's following sort of alongside me or just behind me in the next lane. And I'm wondering, I was like, I wasn't speeding. I don't know what's going on. But he's obviously interested in something. And then as I'm pulling up to the daycare where I'm going to drop my son off, he pulls away and pulls around me and just goes on past and keep going. And I thought to myself at the time, okay, well, whatever he was looking at, he was satisfied that it wasn't a problem, and he kept going. So I didn't think any more of it, took my son inside, dropped him off, and jumped in the truck and pulled out to head back home. And as soon as I did, boy, I looked up in the rearview mirror, and there he is coming right up behind me with the lights going and everything. And this is weird, okay. And pulled over because, you have some concern sometimes. You get a new law enforcement guy in town, and everybody's kind of wondering, we've had our share in the past of, guys that were a little bit too aggressive or whatever. But anyway, so he pulls me over, and he comes up. He's a young guy, maybe, mid-late 20s, and asked me for my registration. I said, I wasn't speeding, was I? And he said, no, your license plates are expired, your tags are expired. No way. And he said, yeah, actually they've been expired for 2 months. And shows how observant I am. And so I gave him all of my information, you know, my expired registration and my proof of insurance and all that. And so he went back to his vehicle, and he's doing, you know, running my ID and all that. And I'm just kind of thinking, like, wow, you know, how did I go 2 months? Well, it turns out that the check didn't get mailed in with the new vehicle registration form, so that's all been taken care of now. Anyway, but I was thinking about it, you know, I thought, why did he do all this with pulling up behind me and then taking off and all that? And I said, well, you know, I'm going to get probably about a $250 fine for, you know, not having a current registration, which that's usually about what it is around here for driving on expired registration. And so, you know, I was thinking about that, and it kind of dawned on me. And then he came back up and handed me back my license and registration and everything, and said, okay, you know, I'm just going to give you a warning. And so, you know, this is what he gave me. Didn't give me a ticket, which that's pretty amazing right there to begin with. But, you know, he just gave me this field contact deal and made a thing, you know, for expired tabs on the registration. And that was it. Said, get it taken care of. And so I was pretty pleasantly surprised by that, as I think anybody would be. And I think just that in and of itself, not having a law enforcement officer, you know, ticket you, because a lot of law enforcement agencies these days, in my opinion, operate as revenue generating arms of the, you know, the local or state government, and they issue as many, you know, moving violations and finable violations as they come across, because that's all revenue, you know, into the coffers. And so it's unusual when you come across one who's, you know, not interested in putting another $200 or $300 into the state fund or the county fund. So that was refreshing. But, you know, as he kind of wrapped it up and was handing me back all my stuff, I said, you know, I want to ask you a question, because I said, I noticed that you know, you first spotted this back on First Street, and, you know, you whipped right around and you were right in there behind me. And he's kind of nodding, yeah, you know. And I said, and then you followed me down here, but then you passed around me and took off, and you waited until I pulled back out to pull me over. And he was like, yeah. And I said, you did that because you didn't want to pull me over while I had my little boy in the car with me, didn't you? And he kind of smiled, and he said, well, yeah. He goes, I didn't see any reason to, you know, do that to you and embarrass you in front of your kid or whatever. And I said, you know, that's really awesome. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And I did tell him, I said, but I'll tell you, my son would have been, that would have made his day to have Dad get pulled over by a deputy and get to see the flashing lights and all that, because he loves all the guys around here. They let him, you know, ride in their trucks with him and play with the sirens. My kid's definitely cop crazy. He could easily go into a law enforcement career himself, but so he's just enamored with the whole cop thing. But again, it was really cool and really refreshing that this young officer, new to this community, and still had enough, you know, decency, presence of mind, you know, just a great attitude about, you know, I don't have to rush into this. I don't have to pull this guy over. And, you know, a lot of kids can be really scared and traumatized when, you know, their parents get pulled over by the police. And so I just thought that was really pretty awesome. And I think that it's awesome to live in a place where we have law enforcement officers like that. And I think it's you know, like I said, it's probably part of the reason that we have so much misconduct and corruption and things like that in larger populations and larger communities, because of that element of anonymity. So anyway, that's me. That's just my opinion and a little story from Uncle Horizon here. Thanks for tuning in and watching, and God, at 10 minutes, that's long-winded. Sorry. Anyway, we'll see y'all soon. I'm enjoying these. Thanks for listening. Ron Paul, 2012, Restore the Republic. As always, Event Horizon. I'm out. Peace.